Oh, what might have been. As I've always suspected, what became the DCEU was not how it initially was intended to be. I firmly thought that Man of Steel was supposed to lead to a sequel, and I think somewhere in between of Man of Steel coming together, they decided to go ahead and out of Man of Steel, they would develop a shared universe series of films, similar to what Marvel, because Marvel by then was proving that this was a popular idea with moviegoers and not just the comic book fandom. And so it stood to reason to say, well, why not do it over here too? So, of course, Man of Steel was later followed up by Batman versus Superman, which is an odd movie, even though I enjoy it for what it has in it, and the Ultimate Edition is much better than the theatrical one. It's still a very flawed film, and of course it's not even meant to be an actual film the way it's just this in-between point from Man of Steel into the broader world of the DC universe that they were developing. And then, literally suddenly Wonder Woman shows up, and it's just like, oh, don't worry, there'll be this other film. That's not how I understand it, to a certain extent, but it was an ass-backwards way of copying Marvel, in that they introduced the Justice League first, and then you get the other movie. No, you needed to do it, the other movies first. One or two, obviously, like for the Avengers, Hawkeye and Black Widow, they didn't get their own movies. Stuff like that, okay, but, you need it. Certainly Batman needed to be in his own movie. And Wonder Woman, she got her own movie, but she got it after this one. And it's sort of intriguing with the photograph and all that, and it sets it up, and they tried to pad it out, but it just wasn't a good plan. So, and I remember Jay Ali was saying, no, it was always in the workings. At what point that there was going to be a Superman Batman movie following Man of Steel? And I'm thinking that was late in the game. Perhaps still within the post-production of Man of Steel, they'd already changed course and decided, okay, they'll do it. But I think Man of Steel is probably the most film that is Zack Snyder's film. Whereas Batman vs Superman, that's a Warner Brothers film. Zack Snyder did it, and he had to try to accommodate them and appease them for what they wanted, and he develops that. And then even with his Snyder cut, of course, we now know, of course, Green Lantern and all that, he still couldn't get it completely out, but how much of it was completely his, depending on what they wanted at the time. And they kept panicking. But anyway, here we are at Cosmic Book News, who've done a total 180 on Zack Snyder because of the rotten thing he did to geeks and gamers, And I can understand that, and I even agree with it. But at the same time, I think it tends to color Matt McCloy's approach to a story. But basically, Cosmic Book News, it does report entertainment news, but at the same time, it's Matt's, editorial opinions on this and that sort of thing. So I guess you could take it that way. I don't think it's a site, well, you got to drop it now, all because of one movie franchise. But, it's just, I I think it's getting in the way of any objectivity he might have. But here is an interesting story. So, he puts it, had Man of Steel not failed? It didn't fail at the box office. You go by the metrics of, did it meet Marvel numbers? No, it didn't. And so WB panicked. That's what happened. It didn't lose the money. It made the money. It was a profitable film. But there is a certain strong argument that why shouldn't a Superman film hit $1 billion? And you would think, yeah, it should have. But it didn't. And he says, oh, it was so dark and horrible and bad and stuff. Not really. It was at the frame of mind as it was. And again, like I said, Man of Steel is probably the most Zack movie of the three that he's done. But at the same time, this was coming out of Warner Brothers' desire for Nolan to do for Superman what he had just done for Batman, with the Dark Knight trilogy. And when you look at Man of Steel, it's very much, just the style and mood and how the color scheme even, is very much reminiscent of the Dark Knight trilogy. But this would be Superman Begins. And at its outset, before it had a title, people were referring to it as Superman Begins because they approached Nolan to produce it. He wasn't going to direct it, but he was going to produce it, and he hires Zack Snyder to come in and do this. So, okay. And it's grounded in reality, as much as you can with a super-powered alien. With Batman, you can sort of keep it in the real world almost completely. But with Superman, no, you really can't. But still, the consequences of superpowers is very much on display in this film. And so there's some people, they rejected it, even though to me it was blatantly obvious that Superman's a freshman superhero here. He's just put the cape on. So he made some mistakes. Metropolis just gets devastated in the battle with the Kryptonians. And and then the killing of Zod, take it or leave it. It didn't bother me as much as other people. Is, oh my God, you can never do that and all this sort of thing. And the anguish that Superman obviously has over having done this, I think is more than enough. He's not happy about this at all. But to me, and previous videos have stated, I think the Jonathan Kent death scene is far worse in that it lacks complete and utter credibility that Superman or Clark rather would just stand there and watch it happen. I think he would have leaped over there in a blink of an eye. Probably no one would even realize what they've seen. And probably before Clark even realized what he's doing, and save his father. So you're going to have to come up with some other way for Jonathan Kent to die. But I know it was driving home that Jonathan Kent was terrified of Clark being revealed to the world and what it would mean. But still, it's just a bad scene in my opinion. But for the rest of it, I think it's fine. I don't think it's great. You can go back and forth between Christopher Reeve's Superman and this one. And that, Christopher Reeve's is a strange movie in that it's in 3 parts. And it's very, very serious. And then when Superman actually shows up, it becomes kind of a comedy. So, I don't know. But as far as condemning Man of Steel altogether as this failure or whatever, I don't know. It's not. I think this is more evidence of the Warner Brothers just panicking. And, all right, get Batman in there. Get Batman in there. So here we go. Zach talks about what it could have been, and what really catches my interest because I thought for sure Brainiac should have been the next villain in there. I mean, obviously, I think Lex Luthor's involvement should have been there, and more between Superman and Lex Luthor. Instead, Lex is more of a villain for Batman and the Batman versus Superman. And it's Batman versus Superman is a Batman movie, basically, and Superman's the guest star. Which following his own movie is a bit of a letdown there. So here Zach says, we talked about a Brainiac movie, but I do think the Kryptonians that are in the Phantom Zone are probably still around. Yeah, that's where they went. And I guess even the humans who went with them, he probably could have brought them back if he wanted to. And there was always a possibility for their return. Feora and whoever's left, that was the thing that was always out there that we talked about as a possible sequel. I just think it's best to give Superman these extraterrestrial challenges because I think you've got to be careful with other than Lex Luthor because, of course, you have to continue with Lex because he's the real nemesis. But I think you really have to look outside of the Earth for challenges for him because of how powerful he is. So, yes, Brainiac would have been an excellent choice to follow up something as spectacular as the the Kryptonian invasion, which they nearly destroyed the human race with that. And then here comes Brainiac. And I always thought Brainiac could be an excellent device for the ultimate confrontation with Darkseid and the New Gods and whatnot for a future Justice League film. Is that Superman ultimately defeats Brainiac, of course. And Brainiac would come and he would try to take Metropolis and keep it in his collection. And then you discover all about Kandor, and if you wanted to involve the Phantom Zone criminals, certainly they would know about what happened to Kandor. And Superman's like, oh my God, well, this guy just keeps collecting cities and shrinking. However he's going to do it, I don't know, digitize them or something. And so Superman, but he defeats Brainiac, and at the end, I thought it would be a cool scene in which Brainiac reveals, the reason I came to take Metropolis is because this world is doomed. And Superman's like, no, it isn't. I've saved it, and he says, and then I don't mean from me. He says, just like your home world was doomed, this one's doomed too. And, and hence, because a greater threat is coming. And it's like Brainiac just, he's a cosmic being. He's been out there, so he knows the celestial gossip that Darkseid's on his way. And Earth's days are numbered. And so it's like, yeah, Superman wins, but he has this ominous little coda to the film, and then you follow up that with the Justice League. You still could do a film like that. In fact, that's the Superman movie they should have done, whether with Zack or not. And where it is that warning. You thought you beat Steppenwolf and it's over, but it's not. And so there you go. I thought that could have been an interesting thing. And certainly, yeah, you could work Feora in there, which, maybe even joining Kal-El at the end, to fight off this enemy. But still to give him the background on who Brainiac is and all that. Of course, I suppose the Kryptonian computers within the Kryptonian ship and whatnot could be. And for God's sake, Superman needs to lift that thing out of Metropolis. They can't just have anybody walk into there. And go stick it back in the Arctic somewhere and bury it so no one else can get in. There's your Fortress of Solitude, But anyway, so would have been a cool thing. And so McCloy adds to this that, yes, there were rumors of a Man of Steel 2 and Brainiac and Supergirl. And, of course, Supergirl was a reference to the official tie-in comic, which did reveal that the ancient Kryptonian ship, there was a pod that was empty, and the insinuation was it was Superman's distant cousin, ancestor cousin, if you will, was the Supergirl of this version of Superman. And, it was an interesting take on it. But, so he says, regarding to insiders, WB wanted Man of Steel 2 to hit $1 billion at the box office as it followed the $1 billion Nolan Batman movies. But when it failed, a last-minute switch was made to bring Ben Affleck in. But Ben Affleck was not the original choice. And so he goes on that Man of Steel would have been a success. Man of Steel, which, depending on how you want to measure it, of course, it was not Marvel money. So, okay. But Man of Steel 2 would have been greenlit along with a solo Batman movie. Now, this is interesting. And I don't know how much of this was Zack's choices, but the idea is the movie would feature a younger Batman in his second year of being a hero. Sound familiar? That was going to be played by a pretty boy actor. Sound familiar? By none other than Tyler Hoechlin. Sound familiar? With the title of The Batman. In fact, Ben Affleck's Batman project was called The Batman, so that was just their working title, and it has remained until it became Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson. So, of course, the entire outline of the Batman is not really Reeves' movie. It's already set for him. And if you believe other rumors, he didn't even get to pick his favorite choice to play Batman. They wanted Pattinson in there. But, can't really confirm that. But anyway, yeah, there you go. That was the plan all along. But they, I guess Ben Affleck, because it was a name, and he had an Oscar under his belt with Argo and all that, and also making it look more like The Dark Knight Returns is what they wanted. So they wanted an older actor to play the role rather than having someone younger, which would have made sense if this is the beginning days of the DC universe. Then you would have had a young Batman getting started, have his solo movie, and then have them cross over at a later date. But anyway, so yeah, Henry Cavill would have been the Iron Man for the DCEU. But it just didn't work out that way. What do you think of the original plan? I think it's much better. That's what I think. But it didn't happen because ultimately Warner Brothers panicked. And of course he confirms, yeah, right. There was no DCU initially. And then while he was doing this, there was a George Miller's Justice League being made at the same time. The writer's strike scrapped that. But there you go. You would have had Man of Steel and then a Justice League film with an entirely different Superman. So they were going to do that. You know, I don't know if they were going to build a shared universe out of that, but there you go. I mean, the case closed on that. What the original map was, which this sounds more logical and better to do instead of the panicking mishaps that they've caused here. The interesting thing about bringing Ben Affleck in and obviously wanting Batman vs. Superman to at least borrow a lot from Dark Knight Returns is, why didn't they just do Dark Knight Returns, you know, and just say this was years later from Man of Steel. And then any other movies they do takes place in between. And so Dark Knight Returns was just a story that they said, it could have worked. You're jumping around through time. I mean, you had to anyway with Wonder Woman. So, yeah, I would have thought they could have done that, you know. But I don't know what kind of Batman Tyler Hoechlin would have made. But that's who they were looking at. He ends up being Superman. Right now, I guess the only Superman that's based on actual Superman is all that we're allowed now, because J.J. Abrams and a racist are going with their black Superman. But so there you are. Essentially, WB panicked when they should have stayed the course. The movie was profitable. You follow up with a more exciting, more spectacular film, especially with something like Brainiac taking on Superman, and he's more Superman. He's been, through his freshman year. He's got more of an idea of what he's supposed to do and more confident and all that. And he's going to be the Superman you always knew. And Henry Cavill was just, if anyone was born to play the role, there he is. But it's just, this is always going to remain a big embarrassment, whether Warner Brothers likes it or not and keeps their head in the sand on this. But as everybody else knows, and boy, did they screw up. And you can fire Zack Snyder all you want, but it's not going to change that. So ultimately, despite some of the stumbles Zack has made, most notably just did that ridiculous stunt with Geeks and Gamers, in my opinion. And some of the choices he made I didn't agree with for these DC characters, but I would take his outline over anything else I've seen so far. But yeah, it's not to be. And I don't know. It's Warner Brothers just continues to poop the bed, like just about all the other studios out there. Oh well. Anyway, there you go. Oh, what might have been.
Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr. Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.